Brought to you by Tenna Controls. Lighting kits, soundboards, and more. Tenna Controls brings your models to life. Well, hello there, everybody, and welcome to episode 69 of The Model Shop. We're coming to you live again this week from our shop in San Antonio, Texas. I'm your host, Boyd Crompton, and welcome to our new time slot. We're here now with you guys on Sunday nights at 6 p.m. USA Central Time. So we kind of talked it over after last week's show, and everybody kind of agreed that Sundays in the evening would be a better time for everybody. So we hope this works out better for everybody out there watching, and we can get more live people in here on the show with us, and more people to join in our lively and fun chat session that we have going on. Just checked in here a minute or two ago before we kick things off, and looked like we had a pretty good crowd in there tonight, so welcome everyone. Got a nice little show in store for you guys tonight. I'm going to kick things off tonight with a look at the 1955 Chevy that I'm building up from I'm building the car from the movie Two-Lane Blacktop. I posted a little update, a couple pictures of that over on the Model Shop Google site page, and I've been doing some work on the body using a couple tips and tricks that I found from some other modelers out there to do some of the work. I want to thank my good friend Chris Cortell out there for his nifty little fishing line trick for cutting the body panels apart. I had to remove the front end off of the model because I'm going to be making it flip open like it did on the car in the film, kind of race car style, and then I wanted to open up the trunk, and using that little fishing line trick worked like a champ. And a little bit further on when I get into the actual working on the body part here a little bit down the line, I'll show a little bit more on that. But tonight what I'm going to do is take you to the bench. I've laid down some primer on the couple of the panels on the front end of the model and on the rear deck lid. The car, as it appeared in the film, it was basically primered, but it had a really weathered and aged sort of patina with these kind of streaks running down the side of it, as you guys noticed in the pictures that I posted there. And so I'm going to be taking you to the bench here in a little bit and showing you the techniques that I use and the method I use to do the weathering on it. I've been starting to do some of those streaks and everything on the body now, and I'm really happy with how it's coming out, and I'll share that with you. Then we've got a nice little sort of a user's guide, if you want to call it that. I put together a nice little piece here for demonstrating to some of you that may be new in the hobby, kind of continuing on with our little format here of the basic electronics and tools that you need to get into doing electronics for model building. That is, this is not specifically a lighting guide, but it's going to be talking about the equipment that you need to get into doing lighting and electronics and learning how to work on circuit boards and wiring and all that. So kind of pointing you in the right direction as far as which tools you need, and a little bit here on how to use them and things like that. So we hope that'll help you out. And then we've also got an update on the 1/2500 scale Battlestar Galactica. I've been working on that one pretty hot and heavy here the last couple of days, and getting some really good progress on that, and we'll show you what's going on with that one. No progress on the Blue Thunder this week, guys. Sorry about that. I didn't get a chance to do much on it. I got a couple little small things done, but nothing really worth showing you guys. And like I said, I'm going to be really taking my time on that model, so that one's going to run on a little while here on the show, but we promise we'll have you something substantial for next week. But we've got a lot of other cool stuff to show you tonight besides that. So we're going to take a quick break here, come back, and we'll have a look at the work we're doing on the 55 Chevy, and we'll share with you some weathering tips on how to do that on your model. So be right back after the break, everybody. Stay tuned. Okay, guys, back with you. Just after a quick short break there, I had to get a couple things set up. We're going to start with the look at the 55 Chevy and the work I've been doing on it. I'm going to bring up a picture here for those in the audience that hadn't seen what I posted over on the Google page. This is the actual car that I'm building. This is from a movie that came out in 1971 called Two-Lane Blacktop. And this car was sort of an iconic car after the film. It's become really popular. There's been a lot of reproductions of this car made over the years, but you can see in this shot here that the basic look of the car is it's supposed to be sort of a rat rod gasser kind of car, real nasty street racing car, and it's got a very unique sort of patina that you can see on the picture here. It's basically primered, and then it has all these kind of streaks and stuff running down the side of it. It's supposed to look fairly used and everything. Now, just a little trivia for you guys here. This same exact car was later used in the movie American Graffiti. It was repainted black. The hood scoop on the top was changed. Different wheels were put on the car, and they cleaned it up a little bit. But the car that Harrison Ford drove in the black 55 Chevy that he drove in American Graffiti was this very same car. So a little bit of trivia there. I think they built 2 cars for the original Two-Lane Blacktop movie, and they had 2 cars for American Graffiti. I'm not sure how many of these are still out there and owned by some a private individual. There's some pictures of it on the internet. But it's a really iconic car, and it's quite challenging to build. At least one or two of them, too, because there's no specific model kit of this car available. You have to start off with a basic 55 Chevy and then do a lot of modifying. Like I mentioned, we're going to be. You can see in the shot there, it has a fiberglass front end. It has a fiberglass trunk. The front end basically tilts open like on your race car type setup. The chassis underneath of the car is been heavily modified, and there's, like I said, no specific kit. So I've bought a couple of old gasser kits to be able to round up the parts. I needed to get a big 5 Chevy kit that I bought to start with. Only comes with a 265 cubic inch Chevy small block. But I've already got the block Chevrolet engine for this. The correct rims and the wheels and the tires for the model. I've been doing some work on the body, as you'll see here in a minute, and gathering up all the rest of the parts. The interior is basically stripped out with a roll cage, and it's had some, there's a little bit of custom work I have to do on the interior, but I'm going to be having a lot of fun. You can see the rear wheel well there has been modified. I've already been working on that area of the model as well, and so it's been a lot of fun and a little bit of a challenge, something a little bit different, which is why I chose this subject. Anyway, guys, let's move over to the bench now, and we're going to fire up the camera here, and we'll take a look at what we're actually doing to achieve some of the weathering that you see here on this model. So here we go with that. Okay, guys, well, what I'm going to do for you now is I'm going to give you a little quick demo of one of the methods that I use to do a little bit of weathering. I've been working on this 55 Chevy from Two-Lane Blacktop, and the car in the film is basically primered, but it has a lot of weathering, like sort of like you can see here that I've been working on. It's got a kind of a weathered look to it, and it's got like these kind of stains that run down the sides of the fenders and the hood and everything. So I've been doing this, adding this on here with a little bit of this black artist chalk from Generals right here. And so I've got the rear deck lid, which I haven't worked on yet, and I thought I'd share with you guys how I go about doing this. So we start off here with just taking a little bit of this chalk, and I've got some 180 grit sandpaper here that I just kind of keep handy for this, and I just basically rub it on here, get it nice and powdery, and don't need a whole lot of it. And then I've got this nice kind of broad brush here, an old beat up brush that I don't use for painting anymore, and I just kind of swirl it around in here, and then just kind of like putting on makeup, we just kind of go and put it on here like this, just kind of blob it all over the place. Just kind of make sure we get some even coverage on this thing. And just, when you see it at first, it looks kind of like almost like it's too much. But what we're going to be doing here is we're going to be breaking this down a little bit. I want to kind of make sure I get it along the areas here where the, towards the edges and stuff like that. And you can see that we've already added some kind of nice. You could leave it just like that if you wanted to. But what we're going to do is we're going to spritz a little bit of water on this brush here, and then we're just going to kind of lightly drag it down the back side here, like, like the stains. If you look at the car in the film, it looks like stuff's been, like the car's been sitting outside and it's real dirty and stuff, and there's been stuff running down it and everything, kind of like what I did here on the sides of the fenders that you can see there. So we want to do that same kind of thing here on the, on the back side of the trunk. So I'm just going to kind of rub this down a little bit so it's not quite so thick up on the top. You can just, kind of get rid of it with your finger like that. And just kind of something like that. And then we're going to put just a little bit of water on our brush here, just real easy. We don't want to have it super, super wet, so I'm just going to kind of get rid of some of it on my hand here. And then we're just going to sort of, up on this area right here, we're just going to kind of make some streaks. If you can see how this is working here. Don't really want to go up, I might make like one or two that kind of go like this. I don't want too many of them up on the top, just kind of, a few of them on the bottom, and kind of change it up a little bit. Make sure you go straight down, they don't kind of zigzag like that on you. And you can see what we got here is, it looks kind of wet, because it is wet, but when it dries, I'll just kind of blow on this here a little bit. It'll leave some really kind of faint little streaks like that. And that's exactly what we're looking for. We're looking for just a little bit, not overdone. Maybe put a few more up around the top here, like it's been running off of the, the back glass on the roof. Maybe extend a couple of them a little further. Something like that. And as this dries, like I said, it'll be just exactly what we're looking for. Now what we'll do here is, when this is all fully dried, we'll just top coat this with a little bit of this Testors Dull Coat, and that will seal everything in and keep it looking the same as the way we finished it. And you won't smudge it or anything if you touch it later on. It'll be locked there permanently in place. So that's just a real simple, easy technique that you can do for some basic weathering. There's all kinds of different mediums that you can use. You can use your oil-based type paints if you want it a little bit heavier, or change it up a little bit. There's all kinds of ways you can do a little bit with your airbrush, but we don't want to go overboard on the weathering of this car. Now, one thing I want to point out too is that you notice that I started off with the light gray primer on this car, because adding this weathering, it made the overall appearance of it look a little bit darker, which based on the picture I showed you guys a little bit ago of the car and what we're trying to achieve, it did look a little bit darker like this. So you want to start out light, especially if you're going to be using darker pigments, like with with chalk or whatever you're going to use, because it's going to darken the whole thing up a little bit, and you don't want it to be too dark when you're finished. So there you go, guys, just a quick little trick. Now we're going to be doing the same thing just like this on the rest of the body of the entire car. And maybe the front clip of the car in the film, it was supposed to be fiberglass, and the rear deck lid is fiberglass, so we don't want to do any kind of rusting on this. Fiberglass doesn't rust. But the main body, like the roof and the I'm not sure if the doors were fiberglass on the car or not. I might have to check that out a little bit. But up on the roof and the up towards the front of the firewall, in front of the windshield, I noticed in a couple shots they had a little bit of kind of like light rust oxidization starting on there, like from being bleached in the sun. So we have some rust powder type stuff that I've got here that when we get down to that little bit later on with the body, I'll show you. We're going to do a little bit on the top of the roof along with this weathering, and just kind of combine some other things on the actual metal parts of the car to get that realistic look that we're looking for, like a well-worn car that's been sitting out in the sun and just kind of used and abused. The whole theme of the car in the movie was that it was kind of a ugly car. It was, looked kind of run down, but it was as fast as all get out. It would beat anything around. So that's kind of the theme we're going with here. So hope you enjoyed that little section, guys, and I hope it'll help you out when you're working on doing a little bit of weathering. And like I said, there's all kinds of different mediums you can use for doing this, and you can go look around the internet on YouTube and things like that to find a whole lot of really excellent instructional videos on about doing this and using the different mediums. So okay, guys, moving on now. We're going to head over and go on to our next segment. We'll be right back after the break, everybody. Okay, everybody, back with you again. Well, I hope you enjoyed the little session there on doing the weathering that we're working on our 55 Chevy. One little thing I forgot to mention when I was talking about there is when you're using those artist chalk like that, the nice thing about that is if you happen to do a little bit too much and you're not happy with it, you can just take a little bit of water and a towel or a paper towel or something like that and wipe it all back off and start all over again, so it's not permanent. It's not permanent until you seal it down with your sealer, whichever you choose to use, whether you want it to be glossy or dull. I'll be using some Tester's dull coat on that, and once you do that, it's locked down permanent and you won't smudge it or anything like that, so it's there forever after you do it that, so just keep that in mind. Okay, guys, it's time to we're going to go back to the bench again now. I had to take the break there just so I could clear everything out of the way and get everything set up, but we've got this nice little sort of electronics tutorial for some of you people out there that are just kind of jumping into learning how to do lighting and wiring and working with circuit boards and stuff like that. So let's hop over to the other camera here and we'll get things going and show you what we've been got prepared for you on that tonight. So be right back after that one. All right, everyone. Well, here we are back on the bench again, and this little segment that we're doing here tonight is for some of you beginners out there that are just getting into learning how to work with electronics and doing basic lighting on your model building projects. And I've got some things laid out here for you guys to show you some of the basics that I have here in the shop that I use quite often that allow me to work on some of these lighting projects that I'm doing. And we're just going to kind of go through things one at a time. Starting off here on the left, one of the very most important things that you want to start off with is a really nice soldering iron. It's really important. Using a solder iron that's not up to par is really going to cause you a lot of frustration because you're going to have probably not enough heat, and you're going to wind up not getting good solder connections when you do solder things together. You're going to wind up doing a lot of soldering when you do electronics. And so what I recommend is, rather than going out and if you only know that you're going to be doing just a very minimum amount and you're not going to dabble in electronics too much, you can get away with using a just regular run-of-the-mill Weller type iron or something like that, the basic standalone iron that you can get at your local electronics store or at I guess like probably Walmart and some of those other places carrying. You can also get them online. Your typical low dollar, less than $20 solder iron. You can get away with those for a while, but if you're going to be doing this for a while and doing it quite often, you want to make sure you kind of upgrade to something a little bit better than that. And what I recommend is one of these actual what they call a soldering station. And what we have here with a soldering station is you basically have a standalone power supply here that sits separately from the rest of the unit, and then you've got this kind of metal stand here with a holder that you place the iron in, and it's connected together with a long wire here that's connected to the unit. Most of these units that you'll find have an adjustable heat range setting on them, and basically we have here on this unit we can go from I think it starts off at like 350 degrees and it goes all the way up to 850 degrees. Now typically I'm soldering anywhere from between 700 to 850 degrees usually, because what you want is when you're soldering, you want to melt your solder really quickly and you want it to penetrate through the connection, through the wires or whatever. And so having plenty of heat to do that and do it quickly is the key. If you're, it's kind of a misnomer out there that you can damage things with an iron that's too hot. You're not going to find too many irons out there, standard irons that are much hotter than 850 degrees, but the exact opposite is true. If you have an iron that's not quite getting hot enough, what can happen is that you can wind up holding the iron on a component or something that you're working with and having to soak it a long time to let the heat build up enough in order for the solder to melt and make penetrate and things like that. And what's happening there is you're soaking the component or the part with a lot of heat and saturating. You can actually cause damage to it by doing that. If you have it where it melts really quickly and you release the iron away from it and it starts to cool down immediately, the less chance you have of potentially causing some damage to delicate electronic components and things like that. So you definitely want to make sure you have a really good iron. Now what we have here is we have this basic setup. Some of the more modern type soldering stations here have some built-in safety features too, such as they'll only start getting hot when you actually start contacting a component or touch solder on them and things like that. This one's not quite up to that level, but you just have to practice safety. Like I said, be careful. You're dealing with an extremely hot tip. As soon as you're done with the iron, put it back in the holder immediately. Don't linger, holding in your hand while you're checking things and stuff like that. And you'll avoid getting some pretty serious burns if you're not careful. And then, of course, with the holder here, typically you'll get this little sponge that comes with it, which you soak in water. And every time you make a solder joint, or anytime you put some solder on the tip, you want to make sure you clean that back off just by wiping it across this a few times, and then re-tin your tip every time you're going to make a new solder connection or work on something new. Just lightly dab a little bit of your solder on here and re-tin the tip, and then when you go to work on the actual item that you're going to solder, touch your solder on the tip and then let it flow onto there. That's the standard practice for professional soldering. It's been the industry standard for years and years and years. It's all about keeping it clean and not getting contamination in there. When the solder's been sitting on there for a long time and it's been burning, it carbonizes, and it's actual causes like contamination, and it'll cause the solder that not to flow very well and things like that. So it's really important to keep that tip really clean. Now here you can see on this particular unit, it came with this sort of fine pencil tip on this one, and this is the tip that I prefer. I've been doing 100% of all the various models I've been doing the last 4 or 5 years in all different applications, whether it's soldering boards, LEDs, soldering wires together. This tip works universally well for doing all that. They offered several different types of tips. Like you'll see some that look like chisel type, like a kind of a blunt end with an angled beveled edge on it, but those can be really hard to get into tight spots and things like that. They all have their own applications, but for general soldering use and for the type of use you're going to be doing with a lot of your models where it's going to be miniature, precise work, this pencil type tip is the best tip to go with. And most of the irons that are available out there, this happens to be a Weller unit. There's replacement tips readily available for these. You just look up go on the internet and look up the specs for your iron, and make sure you buy the proper tip for this. Like for example, this iron is the part number WESD51. So when I needed a new tip for this, I just went on Google, typed in that model number, and I immediately found links to getting to be able to order new tips. And the tip will typically cost you around $4 or $5, $6 at the most. So it's not expensive to replace the tip. If the tip starts to get worn, now I use mine quite heavily here, and this one lasted about a year, and you guys know that I'm soldering here constantly and things like that, so they last quite a while. But like I said, it's important to keep it tinned and keep it clean, and it will last you a lot longer than it would if you don't take care of it. We're kind of moving along here. Now this little item here is what we call a helping hands. This is really handy for, of course, building your models and holding small little parts and things in there. You can see I've got paint overspray all over it from various little things that I've done where I've painted stuff and put it in there and let it sit and all that. But it also works excellent for doing miniature solder work, because you don't want to try to be soldering LEDs and things like that, chasing them all over the your work mat when you're trying to dab solder on there. You basically put your LEDs in here and clamp them in place, or your LED tape, or whatever, even your circuit boards that you're working on. Find a little area off on the corner of the board where you're not going to damage any components when you clamp this down, and just kind of clamp it there, and then that way you can hold it nice and steady when you're making your solder connections and things like that. And you'll find that it won't move on you and it won't wobble all over the place. These small little circuit boards, you can make a mistake really easily by blobbing some solder on and letting it get onto another adjacent terminal or something that it's not supposed to, and you can cause a real problem with that. So, but like little LEDs, when you're trying to hold them there and connect a wire onto it, or when you're trying to do solder work on your LED tape, you can clamp the tape in here and hold it nice and steady. Put on a pair of magnifying goggles if you need to, and you can see those tiny little terminals up close, and just do your solder work on those. And these are really, really handy. They actually make units like this that have a built-in magnifier on them too, if you're interested in one of those. Here we see that I have something that's really important when you start getting into working with these LEDs and electronics. This is what we call a resistor chart, and you need to learn how to read the colors on resistors, because you're going to be working with all kinds of different resistor values. And whenever you're buying LEDs and things like that, you want to make sure you look up the specs on those LEDs and become aware of them, because they all have different values of both current and voltage that they require to operate. You don't want to overvolt or undervolt. If you overvolt, you'll burn them up. If you undervolt, they won't light properly. They'll look too dim or not light at all. and you might think that you have a circuit problem when actually you've got power going to it, but you just don't have enough to even make it light. Most LEDs like have a minimum amount of current that they need to light. Like, for example, your standard like 5 millimeter red needs a minimum of usually around 2.5 volts and 20 milliamps to light. If you don't provide at least that amount of current, it won't light. Now, if you overvolt that, there's a little window that they operate in. If you overvolt it, it'll burn up. I mean, usually you'll pop it immediately. Now, what I found is that for most of these modeling jobs that I've been doing here for the last 3 or 4 years, I'm usually working with lighting where I'm going to be running it anywhere from between 9 and 12 volts. That's kind of the industry standard. That's what most of your battery packs or your wall warts, what we call the little power packs that you guys see me use all the time when I'm connecting them onto these models. They're usually in 9 or 12 volt range, and usually between 1 amp all the way up to 2 amps. Some of your more complex models, like say your Enterprise 1350 scale refit that has a lot of circuits inside of it and a lot of lighting, it might require like a 2 amp power supply. But something smaller, like say a little car model or something you put together where you just did headlights and stuff like that on it, it might only need like a half of an amp or less. So but the thing is the circuit, once you put it together, it will only draw as much as it needs. So putting a bigger power supply on there than what you need is not going to hurt it, as long as you're in the proper voltage range. The voltage is the most important thing. If, for example, if you have a circuit that you built that's designed to operate on 9 volts, and you put a 9 volt 1 amp power supply, or you put a 9 volt 2 amp power supply, it won't burn it out because it's operating at the proper voltage, and the circuit will only draw what it needs. If you put a 12 volt power supply onto your 9 volt system, you could wind up causing some problems because you're actually feeding the system too much voltage. It might not burn it out, but it might wind up looking a whole lot brighter than what you wanted it to look like too. So keep that in mind. But along those lines, these resistors that I have here are what we call 1/4 watt 470 ohm resistors, ceramic type resistors. And I found that these are pretty much the standard that will work for most LEDs, most standard LEDs, when you're going to operate between 9 and 12 volts with your input voltage. And so your standard, like 3 or 5 millimeter LEDs, pretty much any color, red, green, blue, white, amber, they'll all be safe to operate with a standard 470 ohm 1/4 watt resistor. That will cover almost 99% of your applications. There are some small miniature specialty LEDs and SMDs out there, though, that require completely different resistors, which might be either higher or lower values. So you want to make sure that you get yourself a sort of a variety pack of resistors if you can find one. At my local electronics store here in town, they sold this 2,000 piece set of all types of different resistors, and it was really cheap. It was only like $5 or $6, so I bought the whole thing, and it came with this standard chart here, which gives you all your color codes. So you basically have these bars on these resistors, and depending on the order of the bars and what color they are, you can break this down on the chart here, and it'll tell you the value of each resistor, whether it's a 1K or 100K or whatever it is. And you can look up information on the internet about learning how to read these and understand them, and you'll be able to look at resistors and tell what value they are. So that's really, really critical. Some of your small SMDs and everything come with pre-wired resistors onto them, and they'll give you some information about the operating range that they're safe to operate in. Most of them are usually between 9 and 12 volts DC. We're talking about all DC current here, not alternating current. We're working with direct current on all of our applications here for modeling, basically. And so you want to keep all that in mind, and you'll save yourself a lot of heartache, and you'll save yourself burning up a lot of LEDs if you just follow a few simple little practices like that. And you can do lots of research on that and learn all about the different values and everything. But to get yourself in the ballpark, like I said, these 1/4 watt 470, I keep a massive stockpile of these because I use these on, like I said, almost 90% of everything that I'm doing here. Then you have your LED strip, which has its own built-in resistors. You've seen me working with that quite a bit, or other modelers working with it. And so the spec on the LED tape that you buy will usually give you a some numbers that'll tell you, what it's safe to operate at, and most of those usually will operate at between a minimum of like 7.5 volts DC all the way up to like 15 to 20 volts DC and operate safely. You'll notice that the more input voltage you put into them, the brighter they get. But you can also experiment and do little things here and there. We always talk about keeping your lighting in scale on your models. So some smaller models and things like that, you don't want the lighting to be overly bright. It shouldn't take over the model. It should be noticeably lit, but it shouldn't be blowing up in your face where it's blindingly bright when you look at it in low light and things like that. And that's really important to keep the model looking realistic if that's what you're trying to do. So you can experiment with different types of LEDs that might be a higher level of resistance than what's normally called for with certain types of LEDs or even LED tape. For example, if you're running most of this system on your model at 9 volts and you've got all your other lighting tuned to run at 9 volts, but you're putting some LED strip in there and you're going to be lighting a certain area, and the resistors on the LED strip that are built in are not high enough to where when you light it all together it's looking like the area you're lighting with the LED tape is too bright. You can take some external resistors and connect those on to the strip of a higher resistance, just by experimenting around, and you can dull that down. You can dim it way down and get it to match what you're working with. And this is just all stuff that you learn over time and practice, and it definitely doesn't come overnight. I've been doing this constantly now for 4 years, and I'm still learning something new about it all the time. I've got pretty comfortable with most of it, and working with soldering on control boards and things like that. But whenever you get boards or anything, read the instructions really carefully. Make sure you double check the polarity. That's which side is plus and which is minus. Some are really delicate and they won't handle the wrong input. Some are polarity protected, where if you accidentally hook up the wrong plus and minus, you won't burn it up, but sometimes they will burn up instantly. So you have to really be careful about all that. And if you have any questions, contact the manufacturer where you got the board from before you proceed if you're not sure, because you can save yourself a lot of grief of having to buy another board or set your project back time-wise if you make a mistake. So all those little things to think about. Now here, this final thing that we have here to show you is what we call a standard AC-DC. Actually, this is only a DC. What is an AC-DC unit? But it's about a less than $20 item you can find at most automotive parts stores. This is just what we call a little meter. It's got an adjustable voltage range here. I'm going to pull these leads off of the way here so you can see the face of this thing a little bit better. It runs off of a 9-volt battery. Basically, when you select something here, you'll see that the LCD screen comes on. Now, typically with these models and stuff I'm working on here, if I'm testing for DC voltage, I'm setting it on 20 because that's going to get me pretty close to the range. If you're off a little bit, it's just going to put the decimal point in the wrong spot, but it'll still give you the basic readout. But if you're testing to see if you've got voltage coming in and things like that, or testing to make sure something's working, this is a really, really important tool to have. You can test all of your power supplies. You can test all of your connections and things to make sure you're getting power to each thing if you got something that's not working and all that. And so it's really, really handy. Now, we also have down here this little sort of diode type symbol, which is continuity, a symbol for continuity. What continuity means is that you're testing to make sure that you have a complete circuit. So in other words, if you put a wire in somewhere or something, or you want to find out if you put a wire in somewhere at the bottom of your model and you're trying to locate where that wire wound up on the inside of the model, if you misplaced it or forgot what you did, you can basically put one end of your terminal here on the wire and the other end on the terminal, and when the screen goes to 0 here, like we demonstrate here, it's telling that you have a connection. It means you have a closed circuit. It's really handy for running down and troubleshooting if you've got an open circuit, or for testing switches and things like that. For example, if you got a switch, it's always a good idea to test the switch before you install it, because switches come brand new out of the box and can be defective. So what you want to see is when you touch the 2 terminals on your switch, for example, when the switch is off, you should see it open like this. There shouldn't be nothing going through. When you push it, when the switch is supposed to come on, whether it's a momentary switch or a clickable type on-off switch, you should see it do this. It should, like it's letting current flow through it. So you can also test switches with this. So another really, really important tool, and very inexpensive. And there are a lot of other uses for this that you'll figure out as you go along as well. And typically the battery lasts almost forever in these things because it draws such just a tiny little bit amount of juice. It's very easy to maintain and all that, but do yourself a big favor and get yourself one of these in some form or fashion if you're going to be doing any kind of this electronics work. Now, just kind of moving everything out of the way, what we have here in the background is another sort of important tool that I have here in my shop, and this is what we call an adjustable DC power supply. This unit that we're talking about right here, let me get you pointed at it, and we'll just kind of zoom in on it just a little bit here for you. I've had this unit for a couple of years now. You can find these on eBay. This is an actual Chinese-made one, and I've had no problems with it at all. It was about $40. It was free shipping. This one here is capable of going up to, I believe, 15 volts, and I can't remember the amperage on it. But the nice thing about this is that you see we get these digital readouts here, and we've got our adjustable voltage, which right now I was testing a couple of LEDs, and I was running them at really low voltage at 1.9 volts. But we can run this thing all the way up to, actually it goes quite a bit higher than I thought. It goes up to 30 volts, okay? So you've got this wide range of adjustable voltage that you can use to test your components, run power to your circuits that you're creating, test out boards, do all kinds of things with it. And it puts out a really clean, filtered signal, which doesn't allow for any spikes or anything like that. So we basically have the big one over here on the right, this knob, which takes you in a wide sweep all the way from, basically almost zero all the way up to, like we said, 30 volts. Now what you kind of do with this is you kind of get in the neighborhood where you want it to be, like around, let's say we're going for 9 volts here, and then this knob next to it is a fine voltage. You can see when I move this all the way from one extreme to the other, it's only changing it by about 2 volts or so. So it's sort of a fine adjustment. Over here you can adjust the current. I really don't use these knobs too much, but you can adjust the current, and I just basically have them set in the center and don't fiddle with them too much because there's really not any need for it. But the nice thing about this is that you can run a wide variety of, like I said, testing LEDs, testing your circuits, testing boards and things like that, versus using a battery, which batteries can sometimes be unreliable, especially if you have no way to test them. Like, say, if you don't have one of these, because you might have a battery that's might even be brand new out of the package, but it might be half discharged and it won't operate the system at the correct voltage, and you might think you've got something wrong with the circuit or the control board or something, when it later turns out it was just the battery that was no good. So if you can afford to put one of these into your budget, I definitely recommend it. It's been one of the most useful tools I've had in the shop here for doing all this electronic work. And another thing that I'll point out here is that this little display screen on the left here is displaying the current. So whenever I'm hooking up a circuit, whenever I finish up, and let's say I build one of these big 350 scale Enterprises and I've got all this stuff going on in there, or something that I am not familiar with that I haven't done before, when I connect this up and run it at the voltage, it'll tell me how much that circuit is drawing over here on the left. So that'll tell me the basic neighborhood I need to be in as far as what type of a power supply I need to get for it. It'll show if I'm running, if I'm pulling 1.5 amps, or if I'm pulling more than 2 amps. That tells me I need to get a bigger power supply, because sometimes, the power supply, if it's close, but the system that you've built is demanding a little bit more than the power supply is putting out, the power supply will keep up for a while anyway, but it'll work, and it'll work really hard, and you'll find out that it'll get really, really hot. That's usually an indicator that you're pulling a little bit more than what the power supply is made to do. And so you always really want to go with a power supply that's 1 or 2 sizes actually bigger than what you really need. And that way it doesn't work very hard, it won't get hot, and chances are it'll last a whole lot longer in its lifespan. So another thing to kind of think about. And this little tool here will help you to determine what type of a power supply you're going to actually need. So, but there you have it, guys. There's a lot more that you can get involved with. We'll do another segment here a little bit farther down the line in a future show where we'll actually go back and look at some of the miniature LEDs and components that we're working with here, and explain a little bit how we use them, and what you want to use them for, and what applications you should be kind of thinking about when you're buying different components and things like that. But I just wanted to give you guys some of you guys that are new and are looking to get into electronics, a little idea of where you can start and what types of tools and equipment you need to get
some of the basics, similar to what we did here a couple of weeks ago with the basic model building tools that we showed you. And we hope these tips will help point you in the right direction out there and save you a little bit of money so you don't buy things that you actually don't need. But with these things that we showed you here tonight, that should get you headed off in a pretty solid direction. Okay, everyone. Well, I hope you enjoyed that. We like passing along this type of information for you and helping you out there. So we're going to wrap this one up here, and we're going to come back again with our next segment. So stay tuned, hang tight, guys. We'll be right back.
Okay, back with you again, everybody. I hope you enjoyed that little segment there we had on our electronics kind of 101, and I hope that'll help some of you guys out. Like I mentioned there's a lot more that you can get involved with electronics, but some of the things we showed you there will get you started with the basics, and just with some of those basic tools there, you'll have pretty much everything you need to cover the basis of working with models. But you can use some of these tools that we have here for other applications outside the modeling hobby as well. So they're tools that will last you a lifetime, and they're really solid investments. But anyways, moving right along here, guys, we're clicking on all cylinders tonight. We're going to move ahead and show you some updates. A little update. I've been working pretty heavily on the Battlestar Galactica this week. A lot of you guys have been waiting to see more on that one. So I'm going to swing over and show you a couple pictures here first. What I've been working on here is these are the separate little parts that go on the outer hull surface, which are the armor plating that goes on the Battlestar, and it's located all over the ship, on the top, on the front, along the spine, along the engines, and on the bottom side. But what we wanted to do here, and if you guys remember when I talked about this, when I was talking about the scope of the project when we started on it, is that the ship has this really intricate Aztec paneling detail on it. And so my friend Jerry at HDA ModelWorks created these nice little Aztec masks in just kind of various shapes and patterns that are in scale with our ship here. So what I basically did here is the first thing I want to explain is that you have to do some careful parts preparation for paintwork when you're working with resin, because resin is notorious for the paint not sticking very well to it. If you're just painting, something resin all one color, and you're not going to be doing a lot of masking and pulling tape and things like that, you probably won't have that much of an issue. But if you start masking and pulling up, tape and masks like I'm doing here with this Aztec work, if you don't have a well-prepared surface, you're going to wind up pulling big chunks of paint off. So basically what I started off with is I washed all these parts with some denatured alcohol, And then I finished up after that with washing them with some regular warm water and Dawn dishwashing detergent, which is really good at removing any kind of oil or grease that might be left over. And then I took one of these little Scotch-Brite pads, which you'll see when we go to the video here in just a minute, and I scuffed the parts really well with it. The reason I like the Scotch-Brite is that it doesn't, it's not abrasive enough where it will remove any of the detail, but it will put these fine little scratches in the surface where it'll give the adhesion promoter that I put on and the primer that I put on after that a nice surface to grip to. And doing all this really intricate work, which is really tedious and time-consuming, I didn't want to go through and do all that and then start peeling chunks of paint off and ruin the whole thing. So, again, talking about preparation, sometimes we get in a little bit of a hurry. The fun part of painting and seeing things come to life and everything like that, we overlook the basics and it comes back to bite us. So always take that extra little bit of time, no matter how boring it might seem, and do your homework there and prepare your parts right, and you can avoid a lot of heartache and grief later on. So you can see here what I did is the process that I am using for doing these Aztecs is that the final color that we're going to wind up with on the outer surface here, the general color, is going to be sort of a lighter silver color, where the main spine area, the main kind of body of the ship is more of a gunmetal gray. So what I did here is I started off with a color that's sort of a dark color that's very close to what the overall color of the main body of the ship is, which you'll see here in just a few minutes. So what I did is I sprayed all one color down onto these panels, and then I started placing some of these masks that you see here in kind of random patterns, and then moved on to my next color after that. I gradually went lighter, and that way we get sort of a layered look, and we're adding masks as we go along in between each color so that those are all sealed up. And then so finally what we have at the end here when we see this next shot is that we have our sort of silver color that we wound it up with here that's going to contrast with our darker kind of gunmetal gray color that the main hull is. But now these masks have all been sealed and painted over, so our next step after that is just to go pull all the masks off, and we have this pattern that we came up with, and as you'll see here, it looks really, really cool, and it was worth doing all the work. So let's head to the video now, and we'll show you how that looks and talk a little bit more about the whole process. So here we go with that.
Okay, everybody. Well, you could see on the photos that I was showing you there that we've got some Aztec work done on our armor plating paneling that goes on the outer hull of this big Battlestar model, and I've started to put down some of the panels on the forward section here, and it's coming out really, really nice. Just wanted to explain a little bit about how I've been doing this. I'm using these little masks that you can see here, and I'm actually sticking them down on top of the individual resin panels here, and what I'm doing is I'm making sure that these resin panels are really clean to begin with, because it can be difficult for paint to stick to resin. So I cleaned all the panels first with some denatured alcohol to make sure we got rid of all the release agent, cleaned them with some soap and water, and then I sprayed some adhesion promoter down. Actually, before I did that, I scuffed them a little bit with this Scotch-Brite pad, which works really great because it'll just put a really nice little scuff on there. It won't sand down or remove any of the detail, but it'll put some fine little scratches into it so that our paint's got something good to stick to. And that's really, really important that you do that on resin if you're going to be doing a lot of masking. A lot of times if you paint resin stuff, and you don't have to mask it or anything, you don't know that your paint not have stuck that well because you're not testing it. But when you're doing multiple colors and masking and everything on resin parts, it's really, really important because it's inherently difficult to get stuff to stick to it. But so we prepared them really good, and because of that, we haven't had any problem at all here so far. What I'm doing is I'm spraying these panels down first with a fairly dark color, which is almost as dark as the, well, about the same shade as the dark color I've got on the main hull here. And then I'm applying some of these masks kind of, in random patterns. And then I'm spraying a medium color, just a little bit lighter than the dark color I start with. And I put down a few more masks. And then I put one more set of masks down for our third color. And then I finish up by spraying with this sort of lighter silver type color, which you see on the ship, which the armor plating was a little bit different color on the ship than the rest of the hull. The hull was a little darker like this. But you can see it's looking really good. Just mainly working on the upper half now, and I'm just kind of working on this forward section here. I'll get you a little bit closer to it. So you can see the Aztecs. They look really, really cool. And we've got this model. And so you can imagine that we've got a lot of areas now. We've got this 4 little sections here. We've got one here. We've got a random pattern going on, and it really adds some super sweet detail to this. 2 here. We've got this big area up on the back. We've got some along the sides, on the top of the engines in the back there. So these armor panels go on all over this. So you can see this is really going to add some nice contrast and detail to the model. So it's going to look really cool. And you can see when you look at it from different angles, it looks really, really, really slick. And the method that I'm using here, it's really tedious and time consuming. It's not really difficult to do the actual painting, but you know, just the time it takes to place down all these masks. Just these 3 panels right here, I've probably got about an hour into them. So I'm going to probably have about 10-15 hours in the entire model. There's other methods that you can use for doing this, you know, but I just don't think it looks as good. You know, like you can take something like this, and you could just like peel doing the Aztecing on this, but it's going to be worth it. It's going to look really beautiful. You sheet off of here and have all these open like this, and just hold them up and spray it on like that. And I've seen other people do that, but it just doesn't look nearly as good. The edges will be really foggy. They won't be nice and defined and detailed like this. The right way to do this is to put them down and do each and every one of them by hand like that if you really want it to look nice and crisp and come out really nice. So like I said, the extra effort we're putting in here is going to be really worth it in the end. It's going to be beautiful. And we've got, you know, quite a bit more work to do on it here. Getting the main hull painted was a big step. I'm working on paint detail on the engine nozzles and everything. This week on the TrekWorks channel, there will be a new update on this because I'm moving right along on this now. I hope to have this model finished up in about 2 or 3 weeks. And I'm also going to be thinking about coming up here shortly on my mounting of this model. It's going to have a really strong mount because it's a really heavy model. It probably weighs, you know, 10 pounds or so. And we want to make sure that it's balanced really well. So I haven't made up my mind if I'm going to use a single mounting rod kind of in the center so that, you know, the model's kind of balanced, or if I'm going to use 2, because however I do it, I want it to be, you know, totally rock solid. I don't want it to ever have a chance of, you know, having an issue in the future. I want it to be able to last a lifetime. It will look cleaner with 1 mounting rod, but I don't think two mounting rods would hurt it, and I won't hesitate to do that if I think that that's the way we should go with this. But we'll see what we come up with on that. That's going to be coming up here pretty shortly. I've been working on the landing bays, getting those done. I'm doing some really unique lighting on those, like I talked about, to light up the Galactica word using some really, really small miniature SMDs that we're going to be using to point right at those rather than trying to do it, you know, like a Raytheon method, which it just won't look good on this resin. It's not going to, you know, if you have it too thin where you can see the light coming through it when it's supposed to be a dark metallic color, it's going to look white, and it's not going to look right. So we're going to do it the right way. We're going to put the miniature SMDs in there, and they're going to be about the same scale as the miniature lighting that we saw on the model on the show, so that will give us that nice sort of street light look effect on the word Galactic on the side and all that. We talked about that a little bit back when we were talking about that whole plan that we had for this. So working on the engine nozzles, getting those detail painted and everything. So things are coming along, and you'll see a big chunk of this getting finished up here moving forward here this week on the TrekWorks channel. So a new video coming out on that as I move along. I'm also going to be doing another TOS 1350 Enterprise for a client that I'm going to be showing you on the channel, on the regular TrekWorks channel, because I've talked about that before, that I don't want to repeat a lot of stuff that we've already shown, but I'm building a kind of unique model. My client wants some sort of non-Canon type work done on the model, but it's still going to be really interesting. We're going to do Aztec paneling on it, which he really liked. There's a QMX model out now of the 350 scale Enterprise that they did the paneling on, and he saw that video and he liked it, so we're going to replicate that. And then we're going to be lighting the chiller grills, you know, the inboard nacelle grills on that one in blue. He wanted to do that. He wanted the top of the saucer lit up like so you could see the registry name. Some extra flashing lights on the model here, there on the nacelles and on the belly. that the classic Enterprise didn't really have. It's not exactly canon, but it's going to be really, really cool anyways. And so I think you guys might enjoy that, and it'll be something a little bit different. So we'll definitely show you all that. But I hope you enjoyed a look at the Battlestar here. We'll get you one little look again at these Aztecs. And you can see that when you can imagine these being done all over this model, it's going to be really, really cool. So, all right, guys, I think it's time for our Q&A. We're going to come back and head over and do our shout-outs and everything for tonight and see what you guys are talking about. So we'll see you with that. We hope you enjoyed the update on the Battlestar, and don't forget to check out the TrekWorks channel this week, because we'll have a nice, more detailed and more further along update on this one for you. So we'll be right back, everybody. See you in just a couple seconds.
Okay, hey there again, everybody. Back with you. Well, I hope you enjoyed what we had to show you guys tonight. Kind of short and sweet show tonight, but I've been doing a lot of work. That's why I didn't have a lot of work on the side of my other projects. I'm working on client stuff and all that, so I didn't have a whole lot to show you guys, but I hope you enjoyed what you did see tonight, and that those tips for the electronics and all that will help some of you guys out there. We're going to head over now and check out our do our usual end of the show shout-outs and our Q&A session here at the end, so let's head over there and see what you guys are talking about tonight. We'll head up to the top of the list and give a call out to our audience tonight. We've got Brian Knowles with us tonight, Rick O'Connor, Shannon Freeman, Murphy Peoples, Obseaser. Let me see. We've got Michelle Bennett with us tonight, John Petrie. John, I hope this earlier time slot's working out for you, buddy. That's one of the reasons why we decided to make the move. We've got a lot of overseas viewers, and it's very late where you guys are at, so we hope that helps you out. Got Murphy Peoples tonight, Chris Farrell, Mike Scarola. Let's see. I think, I don't know if I said Shannon Freeman or not. Rob Miser's here with us tonight. Heath Tompkins. John Petrie. Dan Harris. Mark Shue. Jim Clark. Chris Farrell's here tonight. George Filkowski. B. Tilley's with us tonight. Scott Hall's here with us tonight. Nice to see you, Scott. Our good friend DeWitt's here tonight. SF Modeler. Mike Kovach. Oh, I just saw the comment there. Mike says we had 109 watching. Wow, that's a new record. So I guess moving to Sunday nights is a little bit better for everybody. That's good news. So we actually did something right. Alpha Trion 92. Oh, he says it meant it to 111. Great. Glad to hear that. I hope you people that are joining us live are enjoying our lively and fun chat session that usually goes on during the show. That's one of the big reasons that we have so much fun. Great group of people in there that talk about what they're working on all throughout the broadcast. Lee Chambers, Chuck Brooks. I spoke to Chuck earlier this week. Chuck kind of went missing in action this week, so I sent him an email, make sure he was okay. I guess he's snowbound where he was at. He might have got part of that big storm that went through. Leona Timber Company is here with us tonight. Randy Wahlberg. Chris with Classic Plastic is here tonight. Nice to see you, Chris. Chris is doing really, really well. He's, if you guys happen to notice, he's back on the bench. He did it, his first video back. He did it without sound because he was a little short of wind, but he's got his voice back and he sounds real good, real strong. He's building some models. Got some great little projects going on. I think he's working on some, I forgot what scale they are now. I think they're 172 scale, a couple of airplanes, a P-38 and a P-47. I think he mentioned he's going to do a Corsair, and he's been putting out updates on his Bullet Charger, which I've been anxiously following along with that one. I really like that little project, and I think he's making some announcements about some more stuff he's going to be working on, so it's really great to see you back in action, Chris. You were only gone for about a week, but we really missed you, and it looks like you're well on the road. Marv Solo is here tonight. Looks like you guys approved of the Battlestar. I'm glad to hear that. Like I said, once we get all the detail added onto this model, it's going to be really beautiful. It's you can just see all the detail pop out on the hull once we lay down that paint. Yeah, it's really starting to come to life. Once we get her all lit up and everything, it's going to be sweet. Jonathan Milbury, nice to see you. Federation Shipyard, Lee Chambers. Yeah, we've got a great crowd tonight. Rocket Boy 69. Triskelion, that's Adam. Adam Corville is with us tonight. Nice to see you, Adam. Sounds like Adam's working on the new 22-inch Eagle. I think Adam was anxiously waiting for that one. I'd like to see your updates on that one, Adam. That's a beautiful kit. I'm really glad they finally decided to put that one out. Looks like it's going to be a big hit. I heard that they've already almost sold out on their first run, so that's great. I haven't got a kit here yet. I got too many things to work on, but can't wait to get my hands on one too. Big Stats is here with us tonight. Rob Miser says his wife likes the Sunday night show. She may send me a thank you card. Well, we're glad that's working out for everybody, Rob. It definitely works out better for me as well. We've got James Frost here with us tonight. Nice to see you, James. James has been putting out some nice updates on his Papercraft Millennium Falcon build, posting it on our Google page, so appreciate those updates, James, and it's turning out absolutely fantastic. Got Rick O'Connor with us tonight. And Rick C. Rick says, hello, nice to see you. Hello back to you there, Rick. Okay, guys, I think I made it through the most of the shout-outs. Just keep in mind, guys, we apologize if we miss anybody in the shout-outs. We want to mention everybody that's here. But if you don't type something in there, if you're just kind of sitting there in the chat and you don't type something in, your name won't pop up on my screen here. So it doesn't update, and I can only scroll back so far. It only lets me go back like a half of a page. So after that, they're gone. That's why I appreciate DeWitt out there keeping track of those notes and sending me the entire chat list after we're done in case I miss anything. So if you guys have any questions you want to ask about anything we showed tonight, or maybe ask your fellow modelers here about something you're working on. Um, Rick O'Connor is asking if I got his pictures. I got some pictures. I got pictures from several people this week for the upcoming slideshow, Rick. But somebody sent me some pictures from their phone or something, and there's no name at all on them, so I have no idea who they came from. And I can't remember what the pictures were. I opened up the file and looked at it, but if you guys, and I've had that happen before, if you guys send them in from your phone, it doesn't tell me who they're from. So if I go to put you in the slideshow, I can't put a name to it. So if you wind up sending them that way, make sure you send a note along with it that says who you are, and please make sure you give a little description about what the model is, because sometimes I don't even know what the model is. I know a lot about models, but I don't know all of it. So I can't guess, and I don't want to embarrass us both by putting the wrong information up on there. So yeah, if you do that, make sure that you we really love having those pictures coming in, but that's occasionally I get pictures from phones and there's no name or any other information attached to it. So it's like you guys are taking in the football games here today. I've recorded those. I haven't caught up, so hopefully I don't see any spoilers. My team's already wiped out, so it really doesn't matter to me. Clint Llewellyn is asking about what type of LEDs I can use for the Cygnus. The LED tape he's using is too wide, and I want them bright enough. Let me see here, Clint. Let me show you something. It's not too hard to get out here. There's a new product, and I believe I showed you guys this a while back on one of our episodes, but there's some new LED tape that's available from Jerry at HDA ModelWorks, and this tape is not even half as wide as your regular LED tape. The only thing that's a little bit different about it is that it's a little bit difficult to solder because there aren't actually any terminals. As I pointed out when I did the little kind of review of that a few episodes ago, what you have to do is you have to go on the back side of it and you have to scrape a little bit of the it's got kind of a clear coating on the top of it, and if you look at it, you're probably going to have to put on some magnifying glasses or something when you work with this. But you'll see that on the back side of it, it's got the contact material on there. So you scrape a little bit of that stuff off, and then you solder your plus and your minus wires. There's a sort of a little narrow strip in the middle that divides the two terminals. So you solder your wire onto the back side of this stuff instead of on the top. And it's the same as the other stuff. You can only cut it in certain segments. Like I think it's every inch or so, or every 3 inches, I believe. Right around there, 2.5, 3 inches. But you'll see where it's marked on the tape if you get it. But this product right here might work really good for you for that application, Clint, because it puts out really bright light. It's available in different colors. And Jerry at HDA ModelWorks carries it, so you could check with him and see if he can help you out. Otherwise, you're just going to have to tie a series of either 5mm or 3mm regular white or warm white LEDs together to get your lighting on the inside of the Cygnus if you're trying to light that internal part of it. It's the best I can do for you. I've never seen the kit, so I don't know what it looks like on the inside. Now, something of interest to you guys, I've actually started buying some parts. There's a large-scale Cygnus kit that's available through Shapeways. The model is actually, when it's fully built, is around 8 feet long. And it's kind of an expensive kit, but I decided I wanted to build it, and so I've started purchasing the parts. It's going to take me probably several months before I get everything gathered up, but it's going to be an awesome kit. It's a completely accurate, 100% every little detail, every beam and every girder, all the clear parts for the towers and everything. I think Chuck Brooks and I were on UVU one night talking about it. We had a look at it, and I made up my mind after I saw it that I was going to go ahead and get one. And then we also got some news on the 8-foot Enterprise. I got some pictures from my mold maker this week, and we're just a few weeks away, guys, of having parts in hand here. So I'm going to be doing a major announcement about where we're going with the 8-foot Enterprise, and talking a lot more about the scope of that. You guys are going to absolutely flip when you see the parts. They're just beautiful. I couldn't believe the detail on the bridge and the engine nacelles and the other things. And we've been working really long and hard on this thing. A lot of trials and tribulations. I think people out there were starting to doubt whether we were going to ever pull it off, but it's going to happen, folks. We're getting really, really close now, and definitely this year, probably towards spring, you're going to start seeing the whole thing getting put together, and it's going to be a whole heck of a lot of work, but it's going to be worth the wait. And we've got a lot of big plans that we talked about on that whole thing, so that's going to be really, really cool. And that, along with the big Cygnus build, will be some really, really exciting stuff. So back over on the TrekWorks channel, I've had a few people not really complaining, but we're a little disappointed that we don't show a lot of sci-fi on that channel lately. We've been doing cars and things like that, but I just kind of like to do what's fun. And as I said before, I don't like to show things, over and over. I don't want to show me building 350 TOS Enterprises over and over and over. I'm building a lot of those for clients. And but when we do have something new and interesting, we'll definitely share that with you. So that's some really exciting stuff to come along, and definitely well worth the wait. Will more than make up the difference for the car models that we've been showing. But there's going to be more car models, guys. Sorry to say, I just like building them. There's going to be planes. There's going to be ships. Whatever we feel like doing, because we've got a wide variety of interest here of people that watch the show and the channel. So a lot to look forward to. Federation Shipyard is asking where he can go to get the conversion, or the conversion kit for the 350 Reliant. If you go over to the Sci-Fi Model Action Forums Federation, there's a thread there in the, I believe it's in the upcoming Model Kits and Products thread. If you scroll down about halfway down the page there, you'll see where Don, I forgot his last name, but Don started the thread over there. And you basically, there's a link in there, you email him and get your name on the waiting list. Now, it's a long waiting list. He's a one-man show. He's casting these things in his garage. They're fantastic kits. I know our good friend Armando has already got one, and we were on uvu one night talking about it, and he showed a couple of us the kit, and it's a beautiful kit. It's very high quality, but as I mentioned, Don is a one-man show right now. I just talked to him a little while ago. It's winter where he's at, and it's cold, so it's slowing him down. He works out in his garage, and the casting process, you have to have the right temperature for that, so it slowed him down a little bit, but it will, you'll get put on a list, and he'll give you updates. He doesn't ask you to pay for it until you're ready to ship, so just get your name on that list, and you can get yourself one. It's worth every penny of it. Trust me, it's a beautiful, beautiful model. Let's see, a lot of stuff was scrolling by here while I was talking. Let's make sure I didn't miss anything here. Looks like some people are saying condolences for Michelle. I hope nothing happened there, Michelle. I didn't catch the front part of what you guys were talking about there. I guess it was going on when I was in the middle of the show, but I hope everything's all right there. Murphy, if you're asking about Murphy's asking about the kit is a one-off, or will they be selling? If you're asking about the Enterprise refit, that kit will not be for sale. Not as far as I know. There's too many issues with possible legal issues and things like that. If you start mass producing stuff, it can be a real problem. This is going to be just basically something that we're going to build here in the shop from an artistic standpoint, so I doubt very much the kit will be for sale. If you're talking about the Cygnus kit, that Cygnus is readily available. You can go over to they actually have a small scale Cygnus over there too. I think it's only like something like 17 inches, something like that, that's available. But you can go over to Shapeways and you can look it up, and you'll see that they have all the individual parts there listed for it. It's quite expensive. It's a little over $1,000 for the entire kit, but I'm just going to buy a piece here and a piece there, and eventually I'll have everything and I'll be able to build it. And like I said, it's one of my favorite ships. I think it was a beautiful design. As far as studio models that were built, it was one of the most impressive filming miniatures that they ever built. They actually built 2 of them for the Black Hole, and they were over 12 feet long, completely made out of brass. And one of them was destroyed during the filming. Another was put away in storage and damaged, but from what I've been reading about it, it's currently in storage over at the Smithsonian, and they're going to be doing a restoration on it at some point. It's just a fantastic design and so much intricate detail on it. I think it'll be a really beautiful model once it's all finished up. We'll have to finish it up, suspend it, and have a flat screen behind it with a giant swirling black hole behind it. I think that would be an awesome display. Clint's asking about the size of the LED tape. I'm not sure, Clint. Like I said, it's roughly less than half the width of regular LED tape, so it's extremely thin. Sounds like Michelle had an incident with her model or something about wires not breaking. Well, I hope it's all right, Michelle, and whatever it is, I hope you can repair it. I'm sure I'll hear about it later. James Kirk is asking, Boyd, how do you test your lighting on your model to see how much power it's drawing? Well, the demonstration I gave in this very show just a few minutes ago, James, with my power supply that I show you that I'm using on the bench here, it has a digital readout on it, and when I hook up and power up my model, it's telling me how much it's drawing. It's telling me on the meter how much power the circuit's drawing. So then that tells me the size of the power supply that I need to get for it when I finish it all up. If you go back and watch that segment, it'll explain that in a lot more detail. Outsider 238, nice to have you with us. He's asking, or he or she, has anyone heard about the latest restoration info on the 11-foot Enterprise at the Smithsonian? I've been following that, and I haven't heard a single word. There's been no updates as far as I know on that. They're just in the middle of the process, from what I understand. They have a date that they had set for when they wanted to have it completed, so let's just hope everything goes well. Yeah, the couple of you were asking about the smaller Cygnus model. I think it was around $100 over at Shapeways. It's a 3D printed model. They have a couple of options there. I think the lowest priced one was $100. Like I said, it looks like it's around 16, 17 inches long, something like that. And then for $200, you can get it all done in clear if you wanted to light it, of course. And it apparently, from what they were talking about there, if you do the clear version, it's printed at a higher level of detail than the standard kit is, from what I gathered by reading what we were reading about that over there. When you're dealing with 3D printing, you're gonna, a lot of people are just now kind of getting into that. when you're dealing with 3D printing, the higher you go in the micron number, in other words, if you get way up there in the micron number, that means you're going to pay more for whatever you're getting printed, because it takes more time, and what they're charging you for basically is the total amount of time the machine takes to produce it, plus the material. So the higher the micron number, the more it's going to cost. But the sharper and clearer the detail is. They can print that stuff down to now where it's even finer than photo etch stuff. It's just absolutely amazing. The 3D printed parts that we're making for our 8-foot model are at over 50 microns. I think they're maybe even 60 microns. So when you guys see these parts, you're going to be amazed at how beautiful they are. And just the sheer size of them. It's amazing how big these parts are on this thing. Uh-oh, it looks like Michelle had an incident with her 1400 Enterprise. Well, I hope it's nothing serious. And remember, it's just plastic, Michelle. You can always repair it. Like John Petrus checking out for the night. Well, thanks for hanging in there again, John, and I hope this better time works out good for you. Rick C. is asking what electronics I use for the refit. Well, for the control boards, Rick, I used all Tenet Control stuff. I used his navigation and strobe light board. I used his board for the deflector, and I used his board for the photon torpedo firing effect. But of course now that's all outdated. He's come out with much more advanced boards than what I used then, which he's got an all-in-one board now that does everything. And he's also got a brand new board that does the simulation of the that runs everything on the model. It does the simulation of the startup sequence of the Enterprise when she's in the dry dock. You can set it up where the flood lamps come on first, and then the deck lighting, and then the navigation lights, and then the warp engines power up. The deflector comes on. The impulse engines come on, all in a stage sequence, because it's already been almost 2 years since I finished my last refit, so things have advanced a lot since then. Clint, it would be for the 3D model of the Cygnus, it would be CA glue. It's basically made of resin. Scott Hall says he has a Klingon D7 where the boom is twisted. Well, Scott, some gentle heat. Either you could try putting your plastic in. One of the safest methods to do is to put it in some boiling water, because the boiling water will gradually heat up the plastic, and you can see if it'll be enough to make it do what you want it to do. If you try it with a heat gun or something like that, you're going to be so on the fine line, I guess you want to call it, between heating it too much and or not being able to heat it enough. And if you heat it too much, you're all of a sudden going to get a melt or a sudden warp, and if that happens, it's beyond repair at that point. So just whatever method you use, be really, really careful. Some other people might be able to give you a few suggestions on what they've had to do. I would recommend, if you're going to try heat, you do it with a hair dryer, not a heat gun. A hair dryer is not quite as hot, and you can control it a little bit better. Mike Scarella's got to check out. Thanks for joining us tonight, Mike. See you next time. And I think with that, guys, we're going to call this a wrap. I show that we're about an hour and a half in or so. And so I think we've had a pretty good show tonight. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to hit that like button, guys. We really appreciate that. It gets the word out about the show and helps out our sponsors. So much appreciated if you enjoyed what you saw tonight. We'll be back next week for, believe it or not, episode 70 already. We're coming right along. We're going to be up on 100 episodes pretty soon. I can hardly believe it. But we'll have more on the... we'll be back to the Blue Thunder. I promise I'll have a nice, healthy update on that one next week. And more on the Battlestar. We're going to actually start another build here. We're going to start on the little Nelly there in the background. That was the one that came in second place in our poll that we took a couple weeks ago about the order you wanted to see some of these kits built in. And then we might throw in a couple things just kind of out of the blue, and I'll also show you an update on the 55 Chevy. I'm waiting for a couple of kits to come in that I had to buy for extra parts that I needed. Like I mentioned, this is kind of a kit bash, and it needs a lot of extra stuff that doesn't come with the standard kit, so we'll have a little bit more for that on you guys too. And don't forget, this week we'll be back with a big update on the Battlestar, for those of you who've been waiting for that, on the TrekWorks channel. And we'll get back to doing regular updates on that until we have it finished. And then another, that interesting TOS 350 build that's coming up that I talked about. So enjoy your week, everybody. Enjoy building your models. Keep sending us those updates. Keep posting at the page. We really appreciate it. You guys are really building this into a nice little community on the Google page. And we've got a nice little group of people here that really enjoy each other's company and enjoy each other's work. So we really appreciate all the support. We'll see you next week, everybody. And take care out there, and happy modeling, everyone. Good night.